welcome. This is Impact 2023, our continuing conversation where we talk about different topics from current events, race and religion, everything that's out there. Any kind of topic that you want to talk about, we're open to having discussions, and that's what we're here to do. And for all of those who have been here before, you know that we ask that you type your questions and your comments into the comment section. And so here at Impact 2023, we have comments, we have questions, we address them, and we answer them. And so as we put the topic up there, if there's anything that you would like to say, please feel free to put them in the question and comment section. This is a live program, and we will address them in real time. Also, after the program is over, if you're watching this on a repeat or a rerun or whenever you get a chance to get to it, please still feel free to put comments and questions into the comments section, as this is a continuing conversation and people can comment as they go along. And definitely feel free to do so. And we always ask that people do that. We're going to hop right into it like we do every week and all the time. For those of you who've been watching the news, we're going to hit right on a current event that happened right here in Virginia, where we're located. Just recently, this past week, a 6-year-old boy was in school and was having a disagreement with his teacher. 6-year-old boy, first grader, and ended up pulling out a handgun and shooting his teacher. The teacher was in critical condition. Now she's doing better. Prayers go out to her and her family as far as hopefully that everything works out okay. She was shot in the abdomen area. Huge story here in Virginia and also across the country. And there's been many comments about what happens to a 6-year-old. Well, first, 6-year-olds can't be charged with a crime in the same sense that an adult. You can't be charged as an adult. 6-year-olds cannot even be sentenced to juvenile detention. They can be remanded, taken away from their parents, and put in the care of social services, but there's not criminal activity at the same level that you would an adult or an older kid that you can do with a 6-year-old. And people were talking about the fact that there's limited things that can be done to this 6-year-old. Because the 6-year-old didn't do this, and they were saying it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a situation of where you had a kid who brought a gun to school and it went off in their backpack, or it was a toy and they were just playing with it. The teacher and the student had a disagreement. The student pulled out the weapon and fired it at the teacher. And so we're very clear of what kind of scenario and situation this was. And so we don't need to speculate about the motive and or speculate, oh, well, this might have been an accident. Questions come about the child's capacity to understand what was going on. Of course, there will be attacks on where did he get the gun from? Right now, they're saying that the little boy got it from his mother. Took it. It was his mother's gun, and he took it and brought it to school. And so he had with full intention of knowing what it was and how to use it. I think back to my son, who is a 6-year-old boy. I could never imagine him trying to intentionally hurt someone with a weapon. But I do know that he's fully aware of what a gun is, what it can do. Can't fully comprehend the magnitude of harm and life and death and things like that. Doesn't fully comprehend that, but he does comprehend that what a weapon is and what it can do. In light of all of that, why are we talking about this today? That's the question that we ultimately have on this program, is why are we talking about these things today? Reason is forgiveness. Where does that line of forgiveness and compassion take place? And where is the line of punishment and retribution? All of those things take place, especially from a Christian perspective. And so we're definitely driving at this from the moral perspective and the Christian perspective. You know, as people, moral people, what should happen to a 6-year-old boy who basically attempted to murder someone? Um, where do we go? A 6-year-old boy who turned around and traumatized numerous other kids in the classroom who had to watch that take place. And so it comes to, what do we do? What do we do? And so society has already set it up so that this child can't just be thrown away. You can't get a life sentence. You can't be charged as an adult. Society has already set it up again that you can't be locked away in juvenile detention. So he's not going to be locked away in juvenile detention until he's 18. Society has set it up in a certain way. The question is, what is the right answer to do with this? And then as we look at it from a Christian perspective, because you'll have a lot of people chiming in and saying what should happen. Well, this child should be charged as an adult. I know when I was 6 years old, such and such and such and such, and a lot of comments come around about what kind of punishment is necessary. And in light of also the kind of society that we have right now, a society where we are very, very big on punishing people and very big on punishing people for the smallest things or old things. A society where we have now looked away from forgiveness and redemption and looked more at punishments and being able to take away the things that benefit you. And so as we look at it, where does the compassion line go? I know for me, there is that weird situation in that scenario where I sit back and say, man, you did change and alter somebody's life. The teacher who was shot was in critical condition, shot in the abdomen. That's depending on what was going on, and I don't go into the details of the whole thing as far as where she was shot, how she was shot. Plus, there's limited and sketchy details as far as that information anyway. But you have somebody shot in a close range, and they're thinking they're going to die. I don't know if she would ever be able to teach in a classroom again and feel comfortable. PTSD or post-traumatic stress syndrome, how much physical therapy, how much emotional therapy that's going to have to go on in her life. You've altered her life. And so some people will think, well, the only right thing to do is to alter this boy's life, or of course his life for the rest of his life, in a negative fashion. I mean, of course his life is going to be altered. There are people who are going to say you got to take the kid away from his family, from his mother, since it was her gun. People are going to say, well, we need to charge her as well. But from a church standpoint, from a Christian standpoint, from the standpoint of people who want to consider themselves moral, we have to look at the side of forgiveness. We have to look at the side of redemption. And where does that start? And how do we make sure that we help others to understand that as well? In this time of cancel culture, where for the smallest infraction, we're ready to say you need to lose your ability to make money. You need to lose your, whatever job you have or whatever career you have. We need to make sure that you don't have that anymore. We need to make sure that we punish you financially the most way that we can to make sure that you don't enjoy the fruits of your labor, or you just don't enjoy life. In a society where we're continually trying to find people and cancel them for things that they've done today, for things that they've done yesterday, and things that they've done decades ago. We in this type of society where we've lost a little bit of where we look for redemption moments. And so I think the church and people have to remind others that we can all be redeemed, that there is a redemption moment. And your redemption moment doesn't have to be the moment of where you're redeemed while you're locked up. So, for example, no one minds when the person has that come to Jesus moment while they're in prison. You're like, oh yeah, well, you're in prison and you can have that come to Jesus moment. But for some reason, we have heartache and heartburn when it comes to not sending somebody to prison, or not punishing somebody as severely. So where is the line? Where is the line for what we should do? in this particular situation with a 6-year-old boy, what should the church be saying? Where should we be at? What do we think? And not that we have to have this one voice, but what does what does what does punishment look like from those who believe that you can be redeemable? That because you're 6 years old, just because you're 6 years old and you've done something doesn't mean that you're a monster or a bad person or all the other words that people are going to use to describe this boy for the rest of your life. Now I acknowledge my wife is a teacher. If she got shot in the classroom by a child, I am definitely going to be upset, severely upset. I'm definitely going to want that person off of the streets in the sense of I don't want you to be able to do anything else to anybody else. But I do know that redemption is there. I do know forgiveness has to be there. And even though that's a hard road and a hard way to get to sometimes, it's difficult for us to just get there. We know that that's a requirement for Christians. And so just because it's difficult or just because it may be difficult doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be done. And it may not be automatic. Who knows in the moment? Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get to where you need to be. But I look at that situation and I know that I would struggle with it. I would struggle with what I thought was right. I probably wouldn't want it to be something simple, like, oh, well, he's going to have to go to counseling and blah, 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 but he can still go out here and do all of these things when the person on the other side didn't. But then I would have to struggle and wrestle with it and actually go back to the word and make sure, speak with other people in the church, speak with the pastor and everything like that, and try to come to an understanding of where should I be on this. And let's pause in that. Let's put a pin in that, and circle back to one of the things that we consistently have been talking about on this program over the time is can't do that if you ain't in church. you can't sit back and have those conversations, face-to-face conversations, and being able to maneuver through and speak with different people in the saints if you're not in church, and in two forms. In the physical form, you can kind of do it online or whatever, if you're phone calls and text messages and things like that with people, you can kind of do that, but you definitely can't do that if you're not a member of the church. And so when it comes down to being able to get together with other church members and kind of discuss through topics and go through tough moments together, that's kind of hard to do when you at the house, when you're a church of one. Where you're either in your own thing or you're just, not participating in the physical form. So that's a little difficult. So just wanted to jump to that real quick, but jump back over. And so I know for me, that would be the route that I would take. And again, that would be having to talk to others so that we can come to an understanding, so that I can make sure that I'm mentally on the right page. Because I may not automatically get there. Who knows? I might, but I may not automatically get there. But the question is, where is the line of what should we be looking for? What kind of mechanism should it be for redemption? Does a person, especially a young person, have to do a significant amount of time? A time away from family, time away from society, time in some kind of facility, and then get redeemed? Or can redemption be an active process of where you're not removed from society, and we can redeem, and we can heal, we can fix whatever scenario and situation as we are still a member of society? Truly, right now, we don't believe that. We believe that you must be separated and punished. You must be separated from the group, separated from society and punished. And then once we feel like you've been punished enough, you can then find your way back into, to civil society. We've talked about this here multiple times. We've talked about this hard line that people take nowadays. against others, and for the most inconsequential things. So if you said something personally, you said something that people don't like, and we just are like, all right, you're done. Whether or not you intended to be divisive, mean, whatever, or not. Whether it was a mistake, whether it was a heat of passion moment, um, we get you on that one mistake at one time. And then if um, because we're so punitive and because we want to hurt so bad, there's never an opportunity to just learn. And it's always, I'm just scared. I don't want to lose my livelihood. I don't have an opportunity to learn or do anything in that sense. Um, so right there, that's where we are. If anybody wants to comment, but that's where we are. What do we do in a situation? How do we promote forgiveness? How do we feel about a situation where somebody as young as 6 does a crime or does something as horrible as what was going on with the young man shooting his teacher? I will say this. Society has set it up in the correct manner, I believe, with not being able to charge a kid as an adult. I don't think there's ever a scenario to do that. And disproportionately, people of color get charged as an adult, disproportionately, and unfairly, I believe. So I'm not a fan of that. It's been time at the time where people have talked about the disparities of people of color and even the physical ability sometimes, because people of color are perceived to look a little older sometimes, or perceived to be a little bit more physically domineering, and so then they get charged as adults, even though their mental capabilities, no one's perceiving their mental capabilities to be any more superior to anyone else. And so I'm definitely on board with the fact that the young man can't be, or the young boy can't be charged as an adult. Not being able to go to juvenile detention as well at 6 years old, don't have any problem with that. So it looks like society has kind of set it up correctly. But the question is then, as a church and as people who should be promoting forgiveness and redemption, what do we think? Let's jump to a comment that we have. And this one says, you may find your way back, but people will never let you forget from where you've come. That's a good one. That's a good one, because people do, people, we love to say what people were and continuously say it over and over again. Like, you're this, or you're that, or you'll always be this, or you'll always be that, or you came from here, and so you just another person that came from here. I think that goes two ways, because people won't ever let you forget from where you came. But in reality, you probably shouldn't forget from where you came. You shouldn't forget the journey from where you are. Now, you aren't the same person, but this is where you came from. So, I'm here in Virginia. I'm born in the Richmond area. So if somebody was like, hey, man, you ain't nothing but a Richmond boy. Reality of the matter is, until the day I die, that's truly what I am. Or that's truly where I'm from. But that doesn't dictate how I act or that doesn't dictate how I act today, or how I the decision making that I do today. It doesn't dictate who you are today, but you should always remember, I think, from where you came. And so if people want to constantly remind you that you're this and you're that and that's all you were, that's it's a double edged, because it is. Even if it's something where you were a criminal and you're always a criminal. Well, no, I'm not a criminal now, but I definitely came from that way. Or drugs or whatever. Broken home or poverty or anything. Because it's always something negative. It's people don't always want to remind you how great you were. But those things are a part of who you are. It's not, even though we redeem ourselves, I think, and even though and even in the church sense, even though we redeem ourselves, and even though we're forgiven, and even though we may become a new creation and a new creature, um, where we came from is where we came from. Our path is our path. And reminding, and if people want to try to do it in a negative way of reminding you where your path is, take that and remind them, this is where I was from. This is not who I am, but I've come from here. And you can do the same thing, or others can do the same thing. Or look how awesome God is that I was this and now I'm that. So yeah, you're right. People will never let you forget. But I wouldn't take that all the time as a negative. Sometimes we can take that as a positive because we shouldn't forget who we are. And sometimes we try to escape and move away. Ironically, I just read an article about this lady in Louisiana. She worked for the vital statistics in Louisiana, and her job was to scan through birth certificates and scan through people's records to see whether or not they were secretly Black. And they were trying to bypass and act like they weren't. And so this lady, it's a bad job because you're out here trying to secretly find out if people were Black when they were trying to escape their Blackness at the time in order to give themselves and their children a shot or a better life than what they would have gotten if they were considered Black. Now, people can have different opinions about that or not. But her thing was to try to remind people of who you were in a mean way, to try to make sure that you weren't able to succeed. And where these people were trying to hide who they were. And it's a similar situation to the comment that's up. There's people who are always going to try to say, well, you're this. In those situations where there's Black people who are trying to pass as white, and never told anybody in their family. They're talking about generations deep. Like great-great-grandmother was Black. Never told anybody. Now these people are going on thinking that they're white or for generation after generation. But sometimes people want to hide who they are or where they've come from in order to be able to succeed. That's a horrible place to be. And that's a horrible thing to have to happen. But we have that time after time after time because people won't let you forget where you came from, but they'll try to also use that against you. And I think as Christians, that's one of the main things that we have to make sure we don't do, is that we get people that come into our ministries, or get people who come into our presence who may have come from some bad situations. And it's not that we shouldn't talk about where you came from, but we should celebrate or accept from whence you came and know that you are different. So you shouldn't have to hide who you were. I shouldn't have to hide that I committed a crime. I shouldn't have to hide that I used to be an addict, or I shouldn't have to hide that I did this or that or whatever. I shouldn't have to hide it. And I shouldn't have to try to make people forget who I was. I just need to just show people who I am and have people accepting of who I am and who I was. And so I think that's our responsibility. Because, we got to stop making people feel ashamed of the path that they took. And that's, and as a Black person, as a Black man, it bothers me a lot because I hear people, Black people, who are ashamed of the path that Black people have taken, ashamed of the fact that we've come through slavery, or ashamed of the fact of, we had to come through segregation, we had to come through Jim Crow. We had to elevate from people who were refused education, couldn't read or write, and had to work our way up. Ashamed of the fact we had people who had to come through public housing because we didn't have opportunities, or just ashamed of the path that we had to take. And we should not be, we should not be. There is, if you're embarrassed of what our ancestors have gone through, what your family members have gone through, you're on the wrong side of the embarrassment. You're not embarrassed of them. You're embarrassing them because you're sitting here trying to act like you're something that you're not. This is where you came from. You should be proud of the shoulders of which you stand on. And so that's always been a thing. So I think that for me, and I know this kind of turned a little bit on where we're going from, but what we have to do as a church is to make sure that people are okay with who they are, with the entirety of who they are, and don't feel like I have to change and be different. I have to do this and I have to do that. It's a growth process. Everything you've gone through is a part of who you are. You know, one of the things is you look at a plant or a tree, and what you see when you're looking at a tree, usually, if you're looking from far away, is you see the top, you see the green, you see the leaves and everything like that, because that's what you see. But the reality is, the tree has the whole entire tree, the wood and everything like that, even into the roots, into the ground. What you see is the leaves. What you see is the growth from the top. But in reality, the whole entire tree is what it is. All the roots that are on the ground, all the actual physical tree. If it was a plant, it'd be the stalk. All of that is what it is. And all of that is what has allowed it to grow. So what you see today in the same situation, what you see today is who I am. But all of that, the roots, everything underground, all of the rest of the tree, because there's so much more to a tree than just the top that you see, the green leaves. All of that is a part of me, and all of that is who I am, and that's how I grew up to grow these leaves. Another comment: what in society would cause a 6-year-old to believe it is okay to shoot someone? Most 6-year-olds do not know how to handle and have little control of their feelings and emotions. Is this a parenting issue or a society issue? My answer is actually going to be probably a little bit more, a little bit different. I don't think it's an issue at all. I don't think it's a society issue or a parenting issue, other than the fact of it is a gun issue where a little kid should not have access to guns. So from the mother standpoint, whatever method she used to keep her guns safe was inadequate. I'll say that's the only issue. But I don't think it's a society issue. And I'll bring that back up. I don't think it's a society issue or even a parenting issue. I look at my son. He's 6 years old. At the end of the day, he doesn't have the capacity to understand. And so little kids will do something. He could take a knife right now out of the kitchen and go and try to stab somebody and fully doesn't understand what that means. He's thinking, I stabbed you, but it's not gonna hurt, or it'll grow back, or it doesn't really mean what it means. It's just at 6 years old, you just don't have that capability to really understand what's going on. But you shouldn't have access to things that you don't understand yet. So I can't, and I think that's why you can't be charged as an adult and you can't go to juvenile detention, because you just don't have the capacity. At no point I think that a 6-year-old has that capacity to fully understand what life and death is, fully understand what hurt and harm is. You kind of understand, you're developing and you're starting to understand, but to fully understand the impact of your decisions, I think that's impossible at 6 years old, unless this person is just a super genius. You don't know. I'm pretty sure that the 6-year-old probably cried after he did it, like immediately after, not realizing what they've done. But in those situations, you just can't you can't allow a 6-year-old to have access to a weapon, because they just don't have the capacity to understand. They really don't. That is why in other countries they're able to take little kids and utilize them as weapons. They can put a gun in their hand and have them being soldiers at a young age, because they don't have the capacity to fully understand what they're doing. Oh, another comment. Unfortunately, I have to say both. My argument is that nearly everything on social media in some communities is bang, bang, shoot 'em up. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think you're 100% right. Because everything on social media and on TV and everything is bang, bang, shoot 'em up, I think you think it's a game. Like, you see a Marvel movie and you see all these people just shooting and getting shot, but nobody dies. And so you really don't understand. You think it's a game, or you really don't truly understand the effect of it. And I agree with that. There's a little media issue. There's a little media problem, all mixed into that. Is behavior innate or learned? And that goes back to the other one. I think it's learned. I don't think you come out of the womb being violent and ready to do stuff. I mean, you might play fight, but you're not ready to, you don't come out of the womb ready to shoot someone. You get that from what was said, from social media, from watching different things, from just seeing all the violence that's going on, even something as small as watching some of these reality shows where they fight all the time, and including the games, yes, that they have access to. Yeah, the video games, the different kind of app games and things like that they have. Yeah, all of that. I think all of that is mixed in so that you don't understand how real guns are, how real life and death is, because it's been portrayed in such a way that it's a game. I think that we're all right on that. I think that's exactly where we are. Like, these behaviors sometimes are learned or sometimes cultivated through the fact that society has kind of made it, made death, made violence a game. I mean, I know that I watch a lot of TV shows that, because I like action. And so I'm watching James Bond. When I was young, I remember I was watching Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones killed so many people. James Bond was just knocking people off like it was nothing. So if I was watching that at 6 years old, I'd be thinking, well, that's the thing to do. Come out here and shoot them up. So yeah, I think you're 100% right on that. And it right with the comment, you lose a sense of reality because you don't understand, like, this is real life, and that you don't go out there and just kill people. And so I'll give you another thing, and we're out of time. I think that brings on the responsibility of us as adults, whether it's our kids or whether it's somebody else's kids. We have to get to a place of where we just don't think it's okay to watch everything or our kids to be exposed to everything. And I see a lot of people nowadays, and they're like, oh, well, my kids mature, they can handle it, or, oh, it's no big deal. No, we can't just keep continuously exposing our kids thinking that our kids are special. They can handle all this other violence and all this kind of stuff. It's no big deal. I talked to them one time. No, we really need to pay a little bit more attention to what we are allowing our young people to ingest. And if we are going to let them ingest it, then we definitely need to have a lot of communication and a lot of talking about what they are ingesting and what they are seeing. Last comment, then we're going to get out of here because we're past our time. Then the problem is a matter of society and parenting. And that's it. That's it. You're right. Actually, we circle back. I was saying it's not a society issue, but at the end of the day, it is a society issue. You're right, because we don't show the true value of life. Yeah, and then it's definitely parenting. But let's all think about this situation and think about this 6-year-old and think about that parent down there, because she may be one of the best parents. In reality, she may be a great parent working hard. I don't know her marital situation, so it could be her and her husband working hard, and they just made one mistake, which is to allow their child to get access to a gun. You never know, and so that's what we. I know a lot of people sometimes will go out here and we'll just try to condemn them, but we all know, all of us who have been parents, we all know, for the grace of God, we might have made a mistake, or you make multiple mistakes along the way. And for the grace of God, our mistake didn't turn into a big mistake. So for everybody out here, so, on the internet and everything, who want to be quick to condemn the young lady, we just don't know. She may just be a young mother struggling, just like the rest of us out here, and struggling to survive, and just one moment of not locking it up or not paying attention. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for these comments. We should be thinking about these issues. We got to think about, again, redemption. How we are supposed to be as Christians, especially when we have these conversations, because I know this is a topic that a lot of people have been discussing. I really appreciate these comments. You've given me a lot to even think about. As I deal with this issue and talk through this issue. And again, this hits me home. I have a 6-year-old. I have a wife who is a teacher. These are real life issues for all of us. So again, thank you for the comments. Impact 2023, Thursdays, 7:00. We have Bible study right here, same time, or 7:00, same place. And if you want to join us as well here at Amani Christian Ministries at 10:00 for service on Sundays. If you're in the area, join us in person. If not, same place, Facebook and YouTube and our website. Thank you for all the comments. Impact 2023. Have a good one.